We're going live. We're going live. It's the going live. We're live. All right, everybody. Welcome
Sing your
back.
YouTube studio song. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
YouTube Studio. YouTube Studio. Oh yeah. YouTube Studio.
Okay, sorry. Welcome everybody. I didn't mean to
Welcome
interrupt you.
everybody. I was singing the YouTube Studio song before I got started because I was on YouTube Studio to start this live. But welcome back to another super superior episode of the best darn show on the internet, the Oversharing Show. We're back.
Super and superior. So superior is like a variation of super, like a
Yeah, a
right?
superlative. No, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. What's a
I hope
superlative?
so.
What's a superlative? I forgot.
Yeah,
It's a grammatical term.
yeah,
Superlative.
yeah.
Superlative is it's an adjective of the highest kind, quality, or order, surpassing all else or others. Supreme, extreme. Supreme's another word that's kind of like super, right?
Oh, a super superior supreme
Yeah.
omega
Superlative
supreme.
wisdom is wisdom of the highest kind and quality.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
sounds like the Tao Te Ching kind of.
It do.
But I think you're right though. Isn't a superlative also a grammatical term and with
I
another
believe it is.
definition?
Okay. Grammar of relating to or noting the highest degree of the comparison of adjectives and adverbs as smallest, best, and most carefully, the superlative forms of small, good, and carefully. Oh, got it. So the superlatives are the ones that are like beyond. So, like you say, small, but smallest is the superlative of small. So I don't think superior is the superlative of super, but
Thanks for asking.
the superlative of super might be the most super because there isn't a like ending for that word to be
Mm,
anyway, like
anyway,
smallest, biggest, largest, blah blah blah.
bestest. I'm super. Thanks for asking.
Exactly. Yeah, because
What's
this
up?
one says most carefully.
What's up, Plasma Bear? Happy Realm entrance day to you, my friend. I didn't get to tell you yet, so hopefully you're here and you can hear that. What's up, Joe?
What'd you
Cosmic
say?
Awakens. Realm entrance day? Oh,
Oh
my
yeah,
break.
you said realm entrance. Yeah, I
Oh.
said breath, happy breath day anniversary.
And what's up, MS?
But
Yes.
realm entrance is a good one too.
Yeah, I wanted to be a little different, so
Oh yeah, you're fine.
you know how I do it.
I just said breath day because it is actually accurate to say that you take your first breath on that day. Like you're not breathing air inside the mother's womb, right? You're using other faculties. You're
You're
swimming
swimming.
in
Do
an
we both say
ocean
swimming
of
at the same time?
the womb. Yeah, I think we did.
Swimming
And
in women with their own condominiums, 5+5s who drive millenniums. I think that's Mace. Whatever.
oh, I wouldn't know.
Bad, 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 bad boy.
Maybe I've heard that part.
All right, we got a third
Ah.
eye on this. We got Alistair shining. And speaking of shining, I could read today's quote. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Boom.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's do it.
Today's quote. All right. It is a terrible error to let any natural impulse, physical or mental, stagnate. Crush it out, if you will, and be done with it, or fulfill it, and get it out of the system. But do not allow it to remain there and putrefy. Let me move my cursor. There we go, my mouse. The suppression of the normal sex instinct, for example, is responsible for 1,000 ills. In Puritan countries, one inevitably finds a morbid preoccupation with sex coupled with every form of perversion and degeneracy. And this
Mm.
guy should know, right? Am I right, everybody? No, I don't know. And that's Aleister Crowley, everybody. So And he looks like he's peeking through our S. I don't know how that happened. Yeah. So, I,
Wow.
yeah, right. I mean, come on. How could you
Uh,
not? School.
do you want to start commenting or how do you want? I can go if you want, or if
Yeah,
you
you
want
go,
to
and then
go
I'll
first.
I'll see what comes up. I like that.
So I have heard of this concept of like in Puritan countries or in countries where you find this like puritanical uh sense of whatever. I see I've come over time to see how a lot of this is, and maybe I haven't explained what this is, but a lot of how we live today and how we like make our decisions and what we do and stuff is all just based on the society in which we grew up, right?
Mm.
So we grew up with this idea that, oh, clothe yourself, hide your private parts, you know, XYZ, right? That sort of thing. Um, but you go to other countries like where you have like Aboriginal people or like native peoples, and they're walking around, the mothers just walking around with nothing on the top. And yeah, the men cover themselves and have like a little loincloth or something, and maybe the women do too. Um, but I would say that's more for like protection of like not necessarily because they're being like, oh, don't look at this. But it's more like if I'm gonna be out in the woods and out in forest or out in the desert collecting things or whatever, it's just for protection, right? Um, just like maybe people also wear protective coverings when it's like the sun is too hot and they just cover themselves. But like the puritanical view of things and the whole view of making things like that evil or like
Wrong.
is it purely societal. It's not like, oh, God is going to punish you because you're not wearing a bra. God's going to punish you because you're not wearing underwear. It's we have put ourselves, well, we have been born into this society, and so we just follow along with the kind of norm, right? And but because of that, you see all kind of degeneracy, like Alistair Crowley was saying. And the funny thing is, people really love to hate on him because they think he was being degenerate. And maybe he was, um, but he at least he wasn't suppressing it. Um, at least he was like, if he was with people, he was with people in a sexual way, he was with them and like people knew about it. It wasn't like these gurus that like, oh, they're like
Catholic priests. Catholic priests. Yeah.
and all these kind of like people in positions of authority allegedly who like prey on people without like under the cover of darkness, shall we say. And then all these people have to be like at some point like turning these people in like with accusations of like rape and all this stuff, molestation or whatever. And it's like it's because they're suppressing it, you know?
100%. They're like these taboos that form in our society, and it's really crazy because like you said, you think about Aborigines that just could like walk around naked or mostly naked, and it's fine, and they don't
Yeah,
have an issue with it, and
they
they're
don't
probably
have
not
issues like
over
that.
sexualized. There's probably
No.
not, I mean, who knows, right? Everything, people traumas pass down in certain ways, so I'm sure maybe there's some crazy stuff going on in certain hunter gatherer or whatever, but yes, anyway, to get back to the taboo, the taboo, and I think that's really what it's about because of this, like, sex is wrong, sex is evil, unless you're only gonna create humans with it, and then you have to be married to do it and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it really it it just causes, like you were saying, all, and like Alistair was saying, all these other fetishes and crazy things
Yes.
to happen in society, right? So,
Yeah.
and I like what you said. um Maybe he was doing some degenerate things, but at least he wasn't trying to hide it, and he wasn't trying to sell himself as something that he wasn't. And I do just want to say, I went to Catholic school, and I was an altar boy, and nothing ever happened. So there are good Catholic priests out there, like our priest. Shout out to Father Spear. He's probably not alive anymore, but he was a good dude. There's some good guys, but I only said that because I was like Catholic priests. But yeah, no,
Because
I
they get a bad rap because it's happened, you know. But even like yogis and things like that, yogi gurus and stuff that come from India that also have, because of like whether it's Buddhism or Hinduism or whatever, they suppress that because they live in monasteries and stuff and they suppress it. Then when they come here, they're like, oh shit. And they don't know what to do with themselves.
it's party time.
It's party time.
And
Yeah.
everybody thinks they're so innocent because they have.
Yes. And that they're so like, uh, what is it called when they're above reproach? You know, it's like they're human too. And if they didn't work this out already, and like they've suppressed this whole lot, you think that they're just gonna like not get it out somehow?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And that's the other thing about, oh, hang on. MS says, yes, you're right, Brandon. I went to Catholic school and spent time with the priest during communion and confirmation, and he never did anything bad to anyone. Yeah, that's, it's like anything else, right? It's like the concepts that we talk about. It's all nuanced, and um, this idea of pedophilia or whatever, I think it pervades a lot of different things in society, but really it comes back to these repressions, right? And because these repressions cause these fetishes come up, and then the person can be assaulted. It could be a fetish where, like, like we were talking about, it's pedophilia or whatever, it's not consensual, and then that person is injured, and then they grow up to
Be
display the same
traumatized or whatever.
behavior sometimes, exactly, or just be traumatized in different ways. So they don't always necessarily molest people because they were molested, but it could come out in other ways. They can hurt women. That's kind of how it manifested for me. I just had an issue, I think, with the sacred feminine. That's how I kind of broke it down. And I wrote all about this. Everybody go to shadowwork.com, and I could send you the PDF and EPUB, and you could read all about that. But that's how I feel like I was just being hostile toward like the feminine, and I didn't realize it. Even though I was like a nice guy, I would pretend to be a nice guy, where I was pretty much a nice guy, but then some of my other actions weren't portraying that. So I feel like that's really the root of it. That's why when I saw this quote, I sent it to Sharon last night. We were just like, whoa, like
Yeah.
this is why people
Yeah.
demonize Crowley, probably. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say I know of a cousin, who, a girl who was at a young age probably was sexualized, and so unfortunately she grew up to have this, because of it. She's now, an adult, and but she's never been able to, it seems, to stay in a very balanced relationship. And it's like, but she's also very like, to this day, very sexualized. You know what I mean? Like it's about that,
I know what you mean.
it's all about that. And it's,
I
that's one of the things that could happen to people, when that happens to them.
And the funny thing is, too, on the surface, you would think it's a great thing. And this is why I love that we cover the Tao and we talk about these concepts, because the Tao is perfectly highlights this. It talks about, I forget this verse exactly, but it talks about when goodness is gone, morality appears, or something like that. Like people start to get rules and start to talk more about morality when it's a degenerate time. right? So it's uh you because you don't have to talk about it when it's not like that. I forgot exactly where I was going at that point. It'll come back to me. But anyway, so it is, I think it's really highlighted well in the Tao in that way. And that's kind of the time that we find ourselves in anyway, in this society. And oh, that's what I was saying. Because so from the outside, it looks good and moral, like the church or the government. They're like, oh, we're gonna hold these laws, and we're gonna make sure that nobody has sex before marriage, and it's gonna be fucking great, like. But what does that cause, right? It goes along what we recorded it yesterday, but basically he's talking about government and the Tao saying like it's better to have a light touch. It's better not to interfere, right? It's better to just let people figure it out on their own. Because if you have these rules and then people have urges, right? And then they go against these rules because their urges overcome them. And then they have this massive guilt. They're like, oh shit, I can't believe I did that. And it's just like these cycles, a cycle that we talk about all the time. And then people engage in escapism to escape and forget. And then because of that, they feel guilty again. So then they go out and do more things and then they guilt. And it's just like this vicious cycle, right? It's like that 80s commercial. It's like, I work more. And it's like, I do more coke so I can work harder, so I can make more money, so I can do more coke, so I can work harder, so I can make more money. It's like, I mean, it's not a bad plan. You work hard, you make a lot of money, you do a lot of coke so you can work harder. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm not going to judge you. We're not, what did Adam say? Did you just quote the Smurfs? Goodness makes the badness go away. I probably did. He just sent a link. I love you, Adam. I hope you're having a great day. Miss you so much. Oh, what's up, Kathleen? Kathleen's in the chat too. We have a great chat. All the
Welcome, all
superstars are
8
here
of you.
today. Yeah, now we just need for Spoons to show up, and it'll be a try to summon her like we always do. Anywho,
Yeah.
well, she might even be listening and be like, "I'm here."
Oh yeah, she might be in her car and can't type.
Yeah, kick ass. There it is. Yeah, we summoned her. What's up, Spoons?
Oh, there she is. Okay. If she wasn't, I was gonna send her a link.
Yeah,
But
so that's
yeah.
really that. So people would be like, they'd point to the media, like, oh, it's with this pornography's everywhere. It's terrible. We got to get rid of it. The TV these days, it's just so bad. That's the problem. But it's like, no. I think that might be a symptom of what's going on. That's like caused by this repression.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely. It's a symptom. It's not a cause. It's
Yeah.
an effect.
And
And it's
although
been
it will perpetuate it because people see the TV and they see, like you can't even like I'm just
it's a
trying to
loop.
click on whatever, and when you get an ad, it's like a half naked lady. Sometimes you're like, "What's going on here? Like, who is this?" But I get it because it just keeps that cycle going, right?
Yeah. You know what's interesting is I think back when I was Christian, um I make it sound like it's so terrible. It's not. I don't identify with any particular religion at this time. But I was reading the book by C.S. Lewis called Mere Christianity. And I believe oh no, that's the audiobook. Oops. Um, there's a part in the book where, oh, I do have the book. I think toward the end, he talks about, or toward the end of the intro, he talks about like all this stuff, the same kind of topic that we're talking about.
Mm-mm.
Um, let me just read where I can see a little bit. I don't know if this is where it's at, but I think I lost it. People often think of Christian morality as a kind of bargain in which God says, if you keep a lot of rules, I'll reward you. And if you don't, I'll do the other thing. I do not think that is the best way of looking at it. I would much rather say that every time you make a choice, you are turning the central part of you, the part of you that chooses, into something a little different from what it was before. I don't know if
Mm.
this is going where I was thinking it was going. But anyway, he was talking about how this whole concept that you and I were just talking about, like the whole turning it into a thing, like turning it into a bad thing is what brings about all this stuff, something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, like making it a taboo or something bad. You shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's naughty. Well,
Yeah.
then people are going to want to do it. Why? Because if you're not supposed to do it and you do it, you get adrenaline. Ha ha ha. It's all
Yeah.
connected. It's funny. Like we've been talking about this for years now. It's great. I love it.
Yeah.
But that's what happens. You get this hit of adrenaline and you're like, ooh, I was naughty. And but I feel like like Ram Dass says in one of his lovely audiobooks, I think it's Love Service in
In
Devotion,
devotion.
maybe, but he's talking about, no, it might have been the other one, Experiments of Truth, but he's talking about where he would, when he was meeting with people and they were talking about like their thing, like their fetish or whatever it is. It's so dirty. And he's like, people just tell me, and he's like, oh yeah, gee, that's a crazy one. And like, some lady just said the nastiest things. And he's like, and there we are, and there it is. He's like, I haven't heard anything that's shocked me too much yet. Everything's pretty crazy. So he's like, when you get it out in the open and you talk about it and you accept it, it kind of just goes away because then there's no real shame connected to it, and you can't get as much adrenaline out of it because you're like, oh, people don't really care that I, think about whatever when I, you guys get it. So I don't gotta say anymore. Yeah, so it's nuts how it's like backwards like that. But
um what would you say about like, so like the example that he used in this quote, for example, he was talking about like sexuality, right?
mm-hmm.
What would you say about like murder or like, killing and hurting people?
That's a
Like, how he says, because people might misinterpret it and be like, well, if you can just do whatever you want, then go kill people if that's what you feel like doing. And people will justify it
Oh,
by
you mean like
saying,
do it till you're done, kind of get it out of your
yeah, like,
system,
well, then kill
right?
all the people you need to kill before you feel like you know what I mean? So I'm just trying to think of like how to explain that that's not what he's trying to say. You know what I mean? Because
Well, in a
people will be like,
way, he might be saying that, which, is going to be like, oh my God, that sounds the worst.
yeah.
But if somebody is suppressing that, I don't know. It's crazy when you say like they have an urge to kill, obviously, right? We can't be like, oh yeah, just go out and kill people. But but I think though, maybe going and talking to people and saying, hey, I have an urge to fucking go kill people, the right people. I wouldn't just go to the police and say that. You might get, you're not going to get the help you need probably. But if you go to the right people and you air it out and you let it out, and you reveal your fantasies, or something like that, maybe that can help. I don't know. But I think what he's talking about is the repression as far as like saying, no, I don't, that's not me. Those thoughts, I don't want to do that. You just push it down and then it just comes out in other ways. So if this
Well,
person,
here's my thing. It comes out in you wanting to kill people. It's probably there's the true thing is maybe anger or sadness or feeling left out or feeling abandoned or whatever that is. If you push it down, that's what. So in other words, the killing of people, the murder of people is what's done in the shadow.
yeah,
Because if you would to actually just air out your anger in a way that is just, even if you have to yell or whatever, but like that's not killing people. Like you going and being intimate with somebody, doesn't matter who, like that's not hurting people. You know what I mean? In open public. Like you're like, oh, I'm just seeing this person. It's a one night stand, whatever. People know about it. I don't care. Like that's the thing that's done in the open versus what's done in the shadow. You know what I'm saying? So like
yeah,
the
no, I
killing
love it.
people would be the thing done in the shadow. So that's the shadow aspect of it. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah, no, 100%. You nailed it because even, I've been watching these like documentaries and stuff a couple weeks ago, and people I've seen a couple times where people that have killed people have said like they don't remember it, or they named it as like another entity or a demon that was inside them. And I feel like that's what it is. It's the shadow out of control. And think of it in terms of Myers-Briggs. It's the demon mode or whatever, right? It just takes over. or however you would say it, or you just shift into one of the other personalities. And if you are really good at uh disassociating, if you're really good at like trying to think of the right word, just kind of ignoring it or not being in the present moment, but it's mostly like a disassociative thing. Like kids, it happens to kids kind of when they're experiencing trauma when they're younger, they go into like a dark place inside themselves or like a place to hide inside. They take their consciousness or whatever it is, their ego. So the same thing would happen, and then that person might kill or hurt or murder somebody or whatever, and then not even really remember it unless they have like, I don't know, hypnotism or whatever. But it's just so they don't even know that they did it. It's so crazy. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So I think, to bring it back to your question, and we could say that to people, what if they're a murderer? You could tell them exactly what we said. It's probably not the murderer they're exactly addicted to. I mean,
Exactly.
there's
It's
other underlining repressions that are causing this to come out.
right,
They
right.
have to let
Because
those
again,
repressions
it's
go.
the effect of what being suppressed.
Exactly, exactly. And at Plasma
MK
Bear
Ultra made me do
says,
it.
"What were you just reading, Sharon?" And that was from earlier. Sounded good. And Sharon answered, "It was C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity." And I read it years ago. It was really good. Yeah, John Chase, MK Ultra made me do it. Yeah, I think that's how MK Ultra is probably just people figuring out a way. They would see people do that, and they're like, "Well, how can we get them to do it, and how can we make them kill who we want?" It's like, so that's probably really all it was, and you just find the right person who's ready to crack, and yeah. So,
I found it. It was actually in chapter 2. Some
oh,
objections. Okay. Um, in Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. Let's see. Where do I start? All right. We all know what it feels like to be prompted by instinct, by mother love or sexual instinct, or the instinct of food. It means that you feel a strong want or desire to act in a certain way. And of course, we sometimes do feel just that sort of desire to help another person. And no doubt that desire is due to the herd instinct. But feeling a desire to help is quite different from feeling that you ought to help whether you want to or not.
yeah.
Uh, sorry, where's this going? Because
Where are you
I
going with
feel
this,
like it
C.S.
was like
Lewis? Is there a line that's going to be in my closet?
I'm trying to, okay, so there's
Long story.
if the moral, okay, I'm just gonna start reading here. I don't know where it's going here. Here is a third way of seeing it. If the moral law was one of our instincts, we ought to be able to point to some one impulse inside us, which was always what we call good, always in agreement with the rule of right behavior. But you cannot, there is none of our impulses which the moral law may not sometimes tell us to suppress, and none which it may not sometimes tell us to encourage. It is a mistake to think that some of our impulses, say mother love or patriotism, are good, and others like sex or fighting instinct are bad. All we mean
Wow.
is,
Just think of that right there. Sorry to stop you, but
yeah, yeah.
I mean, we could probably see people watch this, could see how patriotism could be actually, bad. But most people see those things as good, and then you would see sex or whatever, drinking or, tobacco. Oh, look at how bad he is, like, but they're just impulses. They're just things that we do, right? Anyway, it's so crazy. It goes back to the taboo thing, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to
Oh,
share the screen so you can
boom.
see. Sorry. So I just read what that said and highlighted it. Okay. So I'm right here. All we mean is that the occasions on which the fighting instinct or the sexual desire need to be restrained are rather more frequent than those for restraining mother love or patriotism. But there are situations in which it is the duty of a married man to encourage his sexual impulse and of a soldier to encourage the fighting instinct. There are also occasions on which a mother's love for her own children or a man's love for his own country have to be suppressed, or they will lead to unfairness towards other people's children or country. Strictly speaking, there are no such things as good and bad impulses. Think once again of a piano. It has not got two kinds of notes on it, the right notes and the wrong ones. And this reminds me of when we talk about I forgot what I was going to say. I'll just keep reading. Every single note is right at one time and wrong at another. The moral law is not any one instinct or set of instincts. It is something which makes a kind of tune, the tune we call goodness or right conduct by directing the instincts. Let's see, where's this going?
Yeah, that's anyway, go to morelawsmoreproblems.com to support us, everybody. Click on the Over Sharon tab. You can find us in podcast form there.
Yeah, I can't find this place where it was, so I'll just stop sharing. But I
all that stuff is great that you were reading, though. I mean, it's
thank
so
you.
true.
Yeah, I remember it having some really interesting points. And there was one point where he talked about food as as an example of, oh, here it is. I found it. I just had to okay, let's see. I'm sorry, guys. So much. I did not plan on reading this book actually. It came to mind.
No, it's
And
great. It reminds me of that thing when people do with like methamphetamine or even hand sanitizer when a certain chemical compound becomes banned, then they just change it a little bit, and then it's like legal again. We could get high on meth for, legally for a week or whatever the hell, like it's the same thing with the law though, because you have these urges and there's no law to tell you, oh, you shouldn't follow this exact urge or whatever, or this or that. It's like, it's crazy. Anyway, go ahead.
okay, so let's see. Chastity is the most unpopular of the Christian virtues. There's no getting away from it. The Christian rule is either marriage with complete faithfulness to your partner or else total abstinence. Now, this is so difficult and so contrary to our instincts that obviously either Christianity is wrong or a sexual instinct as it is now has gone wrong. One or the other, of course. Being a Christian, I think, is the instinct which has gone wrong. But I have other reasons for thinking so. The biological purpose of sex is children, just as the biological purpose of eating is to repair the body. Now, if we eat whenever we feel inclined and just as much as we want, it is quite true. Most of us will eat too much, but not terrifically too much. One man may eat enough for two, but he does not eat enough for 10. The
Well,
appetite
hang
goes
on.
a
This
little
just so
beyond.
everyone knows, this was written in like the early 1900s, probably.
I
Anyway,
mean, this is freaking fantastic. I mean,
no,
this is
it's great,
great.
but I'm just talking about the eating example doesn't work in 2025. No, one
um,
man may eat enough for five. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean
where was I? Okay, the appetite goes a little beyond its biological purpose, but not enormously. But if a healthy young man indulged his sexual appetite whenever he felt inclined, and if each act produced a baby, then in 10 years he might easily populate a small village. This appetite is in ludicrous and preposterous excess of its function. Or take it another way, you can get a large audience together for a striptease act, that is to watch a girl undress on stage. Now, suppose this is funny because again, he's not here in 2025. So let's just read this and talk about it and laugh. Okay. All
yeah.
right. Now, suppose you come to a country where you could fill a theater by simply bringing a covered plate onto the stage and then slowly lifting the cover so as to let everyone see just before the lights went out that it contained a mutton chop or a bit of bacon. Would you not think that in the country something had gone wrong with the appetite for food? Isn't that fucking great?
What a great point.
Yeah. And check this out. What the hell do people do today? Like they gourmetify all pictures of food and like make you want to come to their restaurant, right?
Yeah.
They're basically doing what he said. And you just said before that, dude, he was writing this in the what, early when?
Earlier mid 1900s, probably.
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis. When we see alive,
Yeah.
somebody in the chat knows.
Yeah, this was like probably written 100-ish years ago or less. So anyway, and would not anyone who had grown up in a different world think there was something equally queer about the state of the sex instinct among us? One critic said that if he found a country in which striptease acts with food were popular, he would conclude that the people of that country were starving. He meant, of course, to imply that such things as striptease act resulted not from sexual corruption, but from sexual starvation. I agree with him that if in some strange land we found that similar acts with mutton chops were popular, one of the possible explanations would occur to me would be famine. But The next step would be to test our hypothesis by finding out whether, in fact, much or little food was being consumed in that country. If the evidence showed that a good deal was being eaten, then of course we should have to abandon the hypothesis of starvation and try to think of another one. In the same way, before accepting sexual starvation as the cause of striptease, we should have to look for evidence that there's in fact more sexual abstinence in our age than in the ages when things like the striptease were unknown. But surely there's no such evidence. Contraceptives have made sexual indulgence far less costly within marriage and far safer outside than ever before. And public opinion is less hostile to illicit unions and even to perversion than it has been since pagan times. Nor is the hypothesis of starvation the only one we can imagine. Everyone knows that the sexual appetite, like our other appetites, grows by indulgence. Starving men may think much about food, but so do gluttons, the gorged as well as the famished, like titillations. Here's a third point. You find very few people who want to eat things that really are not food or to do other things with food instead of eating it. In other words,
Sorry.
go ahead.
No, I'm just laughing because you're right. Like, what's going on today? Doing other things with food, like eggplant emojis and cucumbers. Like people are just anyway.
Good call. Wow.
C.S. Lewis is turning over in his grave. No, I'm just
In other words, perversions of the food appetite are rare, but perversions, not these days, but anyway, but perversions in the sex instinct are numerous, hard to cure, and frightful. I am sorry to have to go into all these details, but I must. The reason why I must is that you and I, for the last 20 years, have been fed all day long. Can you quickly look up when he wrote this book, Mere
sure.
Christianity, when it was published?
Yeah.
The reason why I must is that you and I, for the last 20 years, have been fed all day long on good, solid lies about sex.
Wow.
We have been told, till one is sick of hearing it, that sexual desire is in the same state as any of our other natural desires, and that if only we abandon the silly old Victorian idea of hushing it up, everything in the garden will be lovely. It is not true. The moment you look at the facts and away from the propaganda, you see that it is not. They tell you sex has become a mess because it was hushed up. But for the last 20 years, it has not been. It has been chattered about all day long, yet it is still in a mess. If hushing up had been the cause of the trouble, ventilation would have set it right, but it has not. I think it is the other way around. I think the human race originally hushed it up because it had become such a mess. Modern people are always saying sex is nothing to be ashamed of. They may mean two things. They may mean there is nothing to be ashamed of in the fact that human race produces itself in a certain way, nor in the fact that it gives pleasure. If they mean that, they are right. Christianity says the same. It is not the thing nor the pleasure that is the trouble. The old Christian teachers said that if a man had never fallen, sexual pleasure, instead of being less than it is now, would actually have been greater. I know some muddle-headed Christians have talked as if Christianity thought that sex or the body or pleasure were bad in themselves, but they were wrong. Christianity is almost the only one of the great religions which thoroughly approves of the body, which believes that matter is good. God himself once took on a human body, and some kind of body is going to be given to us in heaven, is going to be an essential part of our happiness or beauty and our energy. Christianity has glorified marriage more than any other religion, and nearly all the greatest love poetry in the world has been produced by Christians. If anyone says that sex in itself is bad, Christianity contradicts him at once. But of course, when people say sex is nothing to be ashamed of, they may mean the state into which the sexual instinct has now got is nothing to be ashamed of. Anyway, I could keep reading, but and I don't know that I don't know where he's getting all this information about. I do know that people would probably disagree with what he's saying.
How dare you? 1952, by the way.
Oh, so he was saying from the 30s to the 50s, people were being lied to about, I guess, sex or whatever.
Interesting. It makes a lot of sense. So, should we pull a card?
Oh, yeah. We can do Aleister Crowley. Sorry, whoa. We talked
No,
about
don't
that
be
a lot.
sorry. We were oversharing the video, but that was great. People in the chat were loving it. I loved it. Don't be sorry at all. That was, and everything you were reading was like spot on with the whole sexuality thing. And I never really, I mean, I guess I've thought about it, but I never was able to enunciate it in that way or put it together, I guess. Right.
Yeah, it was interesting how he compared it to like if people are obsessed with something and how it's not related to the lack of it. In other words, it's not starvation. I mean, gluttonous people love food just as much as starving people, or think about food as much as starving people,
Yeah, it could be. It could.
allegedly.
Yeah, doesn't mean it's just because of that. You know?
Um, well, appropriately, we'll be pulling from the Crowley deck. And
But I bet if there was a delicious food that was made illegal, or a substance that was made illegal, people would probably flock to places
to get it.
to do it or see it. You know, it's like prohibition. It reminds me of prohibition. What he was
Oh,
saying about
yeah.
the plate of the meat. You know, people
Well,
going to
then
speakeasies
it
and
also makes me think of gun laws,
yeah, yeah. It's funny
laws
how more
against
guns
bearing arms. We'll call them
bear
arms.
arms. More guns seem to get sold when there's like a democratic uh
Yeah.
administration because everyone's afraid they're going to lose their guns, so they run out and buy them. It's kind of like the gun companies should be and probably are. That's how it works. Everybody, you don't know that? Probably, I don't know, who knows, but yeah, they probably pay the Democrats too. They're like, yeah, demonize guns some more. Here's some more money. Talk about how we're gonna make them illegal. Please keep telling people they're gonna make them illegal. The gun companies are like, yeah, this is great. That's why it's funny because like I believe in the right of self defense and obviously the right to bear arms and all that stuff. But I'm not a member of the NRA. I'll just keep it there. Like so, it's like that's just another lobbying firm. You guys don't get it, like or anyway. But it's a
Well,
good one. But it's one of the good. I don't know. You get it.
I pulled the Emperor card, number 4 in Major Arcana.
Oh, what a great card! I gotta pull one now.
I asked for wisdom for today, and
Ooh.
this is the wisdom we get today.
Oh, that's a great question. I'm gonna ask for direction for today then.
Okay.
So wisdom for today, that's a great card to get. It's the masculine wisdom. We're not talking about just men, everybody. We're just talking about the masculine energy. Um, that card is just such a fiery card too,
I
which is
was going to
great.
say fiery. Holy shit, Brandon.
And we were talking, you guys will see
Action, fire.
you guys will see in a couple weeks, but when we do some more Dow verses, we were talking about all that stuff with air is the ideas, right? But then, so that's part of wisdom, but also the action, the knowing. So you need to get into action to get the knowing. It's all related. All right, I'm gonna pull a card. Oh, look at this. Yeah,
But which one's that guy?
it's the Eight of Pentacles.
Mm.
Prudence. Cool. So,
I'm going to look this up. So, do you want
yeah.
to look them up so you can pull them up in the.
Oh, the
So the
pictures you mean?
yeah.
Or yeah, I could do that. I was gonna read from the book too. I think I have it.
Yeah, I could read from the book too.
Amazing. Oh yeah, I'll pull up the pics then
Okay.
while you do that. Okay, cool. So deck. Yeah. There we go. Boom, boom,
All
boom.
right. Well, I will read from the Emperor. It says, Aries, or these are the keywords: Aries, pioneer, discoverer, leader, initiator, creative wisdom. Well, I asked for wisdom. Great leadership qualities, urge for action, adventurousness, new beginning, fatherhood, authority. The emperor is portrayed as a crowned man in a majestic gown. The globe with the Maltese cross, the symbol of imperial dignity, represents the unification of wisdom and worldly mastery. His throne, which glows with the fiery colors of Mars and the sun, is ornamented with the heads of wild Himalayan rams. I was noticing that. His scepter also bears the symbol of power and adventurousness. The reclining lamb with the flag of peace represents the other aspect of the ram. The qualities of true leadership include humility. I was just thinking about that today, humility. and submission to the cosmic law, as well as dynamism and power. A deep understanding and a constant consideration of the will of the whole are also necessary. A ruler with these qualities is filled with a tremendous compassion, which will allow him or her to sacrifice the self for the good of the whole. Wow, that sounds like service to others to me.
Mm.
The double eagles symbolize the inner and outer changes brought about by the creative energy of the sun. A double eagle, this is me talking, also makes me think of Janus, right? Janus
Oh yeah.
with the two heads facing different directions. And also refer to the emperor's creative energy. He heralds the beginning of an enterprise or a new phase in life. This new beginning may be an extension or expansion in the realm of rule, dominion, or mastery, or the conquering of new territories, also symbolized by the emperor's legs crossed in the form of the number 4. On the material plane, the new beginning may mean starting a promising new project, a changing career, travel, or fatherhood. On the inner plane, new realizations may emerge, insights in areas previously unfamiliar. Well, maybe we'll talk about insights previously unfamiliar today because we talked about C.S. Lewis
Yeah.
and
But
that
what's it mean
concept.
on the aeroplane? Sorry, you said on the
Huh?
aeroplane. I just made a terrible pun. Here comes the pun, little darling. Because you were like on the interplane, and I was all like, well, how
Oh,
was it on
on
the
the
out?
aero on
Yeah,
the
how was it on
aeroplane.
the aeroplane? It's on the outer plane. Anyway,
Oh,
I just wanted to say, here comes the pun. I wanted to
yeah,
get
that's
that
all
out there
good.
before anyone else trademarks it. Here comes the pun, little
Do, do,
darling.
do.
It's all right. Anyway.
Okay, let me just finish that. On the inner plane, new realizations may emerge. Insights in areas previously unfamiliar, disks to the right and left with exploding stars. Huh. Wow.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
dramatic self revelation and self discovery are also possible. Well, the funny thing is, you pulled discs too, right? You
Yeah.
pulled pentacles. As long as the emperor's powers are used for transformation and new beginnings, their effect is beneficial. Beneficial. Be beware of using them to preserve the status quo. When used to preserve the status quo, the structure of the emperor's realm petrifies. His boldly determined expression becomes frozen. His authority, once grounded in wisdom, again, wisdom, expresses as authoritarian domination. Living in fear of change, he attempts to nip it, any rebellion in the bud. He is then doomed. His own resistance to the flow of the Tao, holy smokes, sooner or later will topple his reign. I'll read that last sentence one more time. His own resistance to the flow of the Tao, sooner or later will topple his reign. And I'll read 4 things. An indication. This is a propitious moment for a change or new beginning. Trust your own energy and move with it. Questions. What revitalization does your life need? Are there steps you would like to take toward this? Suggestion. Examine yourself critically, especially in regard to your relations with subordinates and superiors. We talked about the superior today.
Oh, we did.
Affirmation. I trust my power. I rule by serving, and I serve by ruling. Wow. Very interesting.
Body, interesting. All right, I'll
Wow,
make
I
a
just opened to the 8 of discs without even.
good because I can't find it. What
Okay.
page? Oh, here it is.
You want to read it?
Yeah, that's cool. I'll read it. I'll
Okay.
shall, but you can read along, I guess. We have the same. Well, yours, I think, is. Well, I guess we could
Mine's
see
an
if there's.
older version, I think.
Yeah, so I guess we could see if there's a difference.
Okay, I'll read along, like in my mind.
8 of discs, prudence, sun in Virgo, flowering, internal and external richness, wisdom, development, carefulness, prudence. The 3 unfolds its
The
wealth
tree.
of the the tree. It was tree, guys. That's what I said. The tree.
The
The tree
triadem.
unfolds its wealth of blooms. I know. I was like, why is it 3? I was like, wait. As wealth of blooms, it's a time of flowering that relates to internal and external richness. On all 4 levels of being, long hidden abilities and possibilities are becoming visible. The number 8 stands for harmony, adjustment, balance. See card 8, adjustment, As you unfold in equal measure on all levels of being, a deep sense of psychic equilibrium develops. This in turn affects your dealings on the material and interpersonal planes. But what about the aeroplanes?
Dude, we were
Uh,
just talking about planes in the other one. I don't know that he does that they talk about planes in every single card.
uh,
Anyway, go ahead.
that's cool because we talk about the material and spiritual. That's kind of
Yeah.
particularly at times of multifaceted flowering, extremes and excess should be avoided. Internal flowering is a delicate process which occurs in stillness.
Okay, can
It
I
is,
just interrupt you real quick?
please.
What did you pull the card for? I said wisdom and you said direction.
Direction.
Okay. It's saying extremes and excesses should be avoided. What are we talking about today?
I guess we can't do the episode. No, we could talk about
No,
we
that's
could
what I'm
talk about
saying.
avoiding.
But
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
exactly, because we're talking about don't go to that
Yes, you're
extreme.
right. I was thinking that it's telling us not to talk about those things. It's funny, but yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
It's telling us that we're on the right path, I think.
That's crazy.
I know.
It's like such a synchronicity. My mind's blown.
I know.
Oh, all right. There we go. Thank you. That was I didn't think about that. La, 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 la. Okay, so it said internal flowering is a delicate process which occurs in stillness. Yes, it is a gift to handle lovingly and with great care. Every bloom on the tree is shielded by a large leaf, a symbol for protection and prudence. Also remember that the tree is just beginning to bloom. It is not the time for harvesting or for giving out the newly developing wealth. In order to maintain the internal balance, special attention must be paid on the external level to clarity, order, and beauty. All right. In the context of beginning and in the context of beginning and undertaking, this
Which the
card
emperor said was a new beginnings. Go ahead.
it is uh I'll think of it after. In the context of beginning and undertaking, this card includes a warning. Before making a new start, be sure that health and finances are abundant enough to allow for success. That which is coming, okay, so then he has the indications. That which is coming into flower in you is of exquisite beauty and delicacy. Provide for it the protection and nourishment that it needs. You don't need to force anything. Everything unfolds at the
The
proper
Tao.
time.
The
Question, are
Tao.
you the Tao? Question, are you giving yourself the protection and nourishment you need now for your development? Suggestion, meditate on the well-known phrase from the Zen tradition, sitting silently doing nothing, the spring comes and the grass grows by itself.
Everything is happening by itself.
I relax and trust life. That's
That's
the
the affirmation.
affirmation.
It was identical. It's just
Yeah,
maybe there's some variation somewhere, but it's pretty
yeah. They're
much
like, oh, this one
or
nails it. We don't need to change it.
a
But that's
reprint or like a sometimes they do a republication by someone else because the other stuff doesn't um end up or it expires or something. So they just have it republished.
oh, that makes sense. Yeah. The beginning is a time for making all the necessary preparations. This any sister of the Bene Gesserit knows. It's something like that. That's from Dune.
Oh,
Prudence. Should we look up the word prudence, or
oh
can you
yeah,
define
to
it off
be
the top of your
prudent.
head?
Yeah. To be prudent is to be like careful and wise and like just yeah, let me just I'm not fantastic with definitions, so I'll just
Yeah, that's why I always have an idea of I think what a word, especially in context, means. But
Mhm.
it's great to review the definitions.
Yes, I love to. All
So you
right,
get
prudent.
vocab lessons here at the
Yeah, so
Overshoot.
here it is. Wise or judicious in practical affairs, discreet or circumspect, sagacious, sober. Synonyms are careful, cautious, sensible. Another definition is careful in providing for the future, provident, a prudent decision. And synonym for that would be frugal, thrifty, economical.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Prudent with your money.
Yes. What's the opposite of that? No.
Shall we look up antonyms?
No, that's all right. I was jesting. I'm gonna mute myself for a second. That was a good one. We should they I think you could hit the space bar, right, for a quick mute. No, maybe not.
Oh,
Let me see.
yeah.
I think there was one. Nope. That'd be nice.
I'll just read some antonyms of prudent: careless, expensive, foolish, hasty, inattentive, incautious, indiscreet, nonsensical, rash, reckless, stupid, thoughtless, uncareful, uneconomical, unreasonable, and wasteful. Some weak opposites allegedly are imprudent and unwise. I don't know why those would be weak, but
See,
Kitty.
seeing if she has anything to say. She was just talking. Come on, Snickers, say something. She talks.
Oh,
I
by
see.
the way, I don't think it'll come through because Zoom has this thing where like any noise that is not a
Oh yeah.
voice, like a person's voice doesn't come through. Because one day I meowed in response to seeing your cat and
Oh
like
yeah.
it never came through in the recording.
Hilarious. I got
Yeah.
to remember that for if I'm ever like playing an instrument. Like I was playing my tongue drum the other day, that
Yeah.
little drum that I have, and I was just in a zone. And Elizabeth was like cleaning or something. I don't know. She was just like, I don't know. I did it for about 20 minutes. I was just like going hard. She's like, I got so much done. I'm like, this is great. I'm like the Pied Piper.
Yeah. You'll have to look at the settings and like make sure that they're changed to
Yeah, I've
allow
seen the
for
yeah.
not just voice
Cool.
or whatever. At least that's what I suspect is the
I like
case
it.
on my end. Um, so yeah, those were the two things, but there was something else that we wanted to touch on. I'm trying to remember what it was.
For here comes the pun. I say that's not right. That's not right. Do 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 do. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. QSB.
Do 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 do
Oh,
do
yeah.
do 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 do
Well,
do do.
let's see. How long have we been going? This is a good intro. We've been going for almost an hour.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Cool.
There was something I wanted to say or read, and I just have to remember where it's at. It's
Was it
in,
the thing
okay,
you sent?
yes. Yes, it's in this book. I need to find it really quickly. So I've been reading all kinds of different books. I kind of jump in, and I mean, some of them are really, really good. I started reading this book. I came across it, and I'm like, dude, what? How timely is it? It's about Manly P. Hall, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
and we're gonna, hopefully in the near future, gonna start a series on the short little book called The Occult Anatomy of Man by Manly P. Hall. And when I was reading through this book, I was very, I was just, it was like insane. We'll see it because I'm just gonna bring it up here in a second. I just need to change the font a little so it's bigger for you guys to see it better. Um, but this is basically what we're trying to talk about today. It's insane. All right. So
Now.
I am going to. Oh, where'd that go? No. All right. I'm going to share my screen here. 1 second. All right. I hope that's not too small. Should I make the size a little bigger? Maybe.
I think that works.
Okay. I think this
Oh,
is
that's
good.
good. Yeah, yeah. Sure.
Okay, so let me just, you know what? I will just give a quick little preface about what's going on here. So this guy is writing a book about who Manly P. Hall was. Because Manly P. Hall, interestingly enough, um, he was very young when he was writing a lot of these things, and especially like the his Magnus, what did they call that, magnum opus or
Magnus, yeah, Magnus Opus
something like that. I forget what they call
by Magnus Opus, I
it.
think.
The what is that called? Dang it, it's like escaping my mind, but it's like the I keep thinking of the occult anatomy of man. Um,
Oh, yeah, I have the book right in the other room.
History of all ages, or the secret.
Secret Teachings of All Ages. I can go
Yes,
grab it really quick if you want me to show it.
sure. The secret
All right.
teachings of all ages. He wrote, and it's this like massive text, um, which I have not yet even tried to dive into yet. Um, the occult anatomy of man has been so fascinating so far, but I've been told that the secret teachings of all ages is actually more like an encyclopedia of all this information. So it's kind of like a reference book. But I mean, the guy was young, probably in his 20s when he wrote this book. So he like had a lot of massive knowledge and, at a young age. But so this guy's writing this book about him, and he comes across weird things about the guy, and he even had a weird death. Like nobody still to this day knows what happened. People think he was murdered, but there's like nothing ever got really looked into, and it's just weird. Um so anyway, this guy's writing the preface to talk about like how he almost didn't write this book because he got information about how you know weird things about this guy, right? So I'm just going to read a little bit from that. Okay, let me find it. Okay, so the book is called Master of the Mysteries. Um, and let's see, where do I start? Okay. Okay, some may find this new information unsettling. Oh, because of this. Let's see. James reveals that she was both urged and stymied by what she concludes was Hall's spirit, which she said kept coming to her in dreams and telepathic messages after he died. Okay. Attempting to direct the course of the civil case she brought against the man police believe took Hall's life. Some
Uh,
may find this new information unsettling. A journalist's job is to turn over every rock, record what's underneath and follow that evidence wherever it leads. There was a time while writing the first edition when I was sorely tempted to scrap the project. I questioned the very idea of focusing more attention on yet another self-styled mystic with all too human flaws who made a career out of telling people how to live right. In
oh,
that period of self-reflection, I reached out to Houston Smith, the noted scholar whose book, The World's Religions, has sold over 2 million copies. And I'll pause here to say that I didn't know this guy was even associated. When I opened this book, Master of the Mysteries, I didn't know that he even knew anything about Houston Smith. And I've been reading Houston Smith's book, The World's Religions, for months.
yeah, we quoted it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I've read little pieces of it. It's a fantastic book. I'm still not done with it, but it's like this is so funny. And I've watched Houston Smith's little videos that he did like in the 50s. He was doing this like teaching series on the book because he lectured about it. He was a professor, Houston Smith.
Oh, okay.
And um So he did these short little like kind of, sorry, I'll just stop this for now. He did this short little series on the religions of the world, and each video was like maybe 45 minutes long, and he would kind of recap what that religion was about, like the main points. And he always focuses on the how they are trying to get closer to God, like what is their way, like all the best things about it. He doesn't talk about all the negative things that people want to throw at it. But I find I've found it so helpful to understand those religions. You know what I mean? I haven't watched it fully, so I don't know about every religion, but Hinduism for sure I've seen him talk about, and Buddhism so far. So it's been very helpful. Anyway, I thought that was quite a synchronous.
Synchronicities.
Yes,
Yeah. Sorry.
absolutely.
I love that though. That guy Houston Smith wrote the book, and it's all about the good things about the religions.
Yes. Um, all right. So in 2006, over dinner at a restaurant less than a mile from Hall's Philosophical Research Society, the heart of Los Angeles metaphysical community, I said, Houston, help me out here. Manly P. Hall had serious personal issues. Khalil Gibran was a chain smoker who died of cirrhosis of the liver. Madame
Yeah.
Blavatsky was exposed as a fraud and had such bad personal hygiene that there were ulcerous sores on both her legs. Ellen Watts spent his last years in a stupor, guzzling warm vodka by the quarts.
Yeah.
Carlos Castaneda was a fraud and a jerk, which I've actually confirmed. This Spanish guy, this guy from Spain, wrote a book, and he's kind of like a not a detective, but of like history. Like he'll go do stuff and he'll talk to people that knew him. He like talked to all these people who knew him, and he wrote this amazing book, which I haven't read, but people in the circles who have read it, I've read the reviews and stuff of people who read that book. It's about how Carlos Castaneda was a complete fraud. Like he made all that shit up. There was no such thing as a man named Juan Matus who was his guru or whatever. Like he made all that shit up. But anyway, this is funny. All right. Edmund Zaleski, I don't know how to pronounce that. Zakelli, Edmund Zakelli's wife told me that he never discovered Essene documents in the Vatican. He made that up.
Wow.
Dude. So that book that people talk about, the Essene Gospel of, what's it? Essene Gospel of Peace. That is the book he wrote, this guy Edmund Zakelli or whatever. It wasn't real. It was like he did not find those documents in the Vatican and like translate them.
But Sharon, did I show you the documents I found at the Vatican that we're gonna translate? They're amazing.
Okay, so let me just finish reading this. Okay. So this guy is the author of this book, says, "Do these people deserve a moment of our attention?" Smith smiled, and with a twinkle in his eyes, which I love that guy, Houston Smith. Like, just he's such a lovable person. Anyway, he said, "Let me tell you a story. As a young man, I spent 10 years studying Zen in Tokyo. At the end of those 10 years, just before I returned to the United States, my master invited me to his home. He said, Houston, before you leave, there are some things I want you to know. At the appointed hour, I knocked on his front door. He said, Houston, welcome. This is Miss So-and-so. She takes care of my personal needs. Clearly he's implying something. Then he led me into an adjacent room and said, Houston, do you see this enormous television set? I watch sumo wrestling on this television set. I love watching sumo wrestling. Then he pushed through the curtains of yet another room and said, Houston, do you see all these empty beer cans and all these empty wine bottles? I drank all this wine and all this beer watching sumo wrestling. Clearly, my master did not want me to leave with him on a pedestal. What he couldn't know is that after learning all these things, I loved him even more. So the author says, thank you, Houston.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because we are all just people with weird, you know, desires and
Idiosyncrasies and desires
inclinations
and
and
yeah,
feelings, and
proclivities.
we've all have a certain we all have a certain set of skills that
Yeah.
makes us deadly, like Liam Neeson. We have a certain set of I wasn't gonna say skills, I was gonna say another S word, I forget. But anyway, we've all been through trauma and whatever. So we all have our things that we do. And that's really, I mean, we could just end the episode, but we won't. Right there about pit and pedestal. And just to make this all formal and to explain what it is. So the idea of a pit and a pedestal is that you have a person or maybe a religion or something that you put on a pedestal and it could do no wrong. So for an example, we'll say the Pope, right? Oh, the Pope's great. He could do no wrong, no matter what he says or does. We got to do it. And then, though, there's this unseen thing that happens, which is the pit. So you need a scapegoat. You need somebody to point the finger at. So we'll say in this scenario, we'll say Satan. He's we'll put him in the pit. Satan's evil. Everything that happens that's bad, we'll just blame it on him. And it's a worldview that a lot of people have and they don't realize it. It's very, I think, a materialistic worldview, but it's nonetheless, it's just fascinating. And what he was saying is, what you just read, what that guy said is perfect because, yeah, you could still find a guru or spiritual teacher or someone online or, Sharon and Brandon. You can find somebody that helps you along with your spiritual journey or you can learn stuff from and hang out with or whatever. But that doesn't mean that you have to then put them on the pedestal and be like, this is the person we got to follow everything they say and do how they eat. We got to do it, whatever it is. And you see this
Dude.
time and time again. I watched a few of these old documentaries about cult leaders. They're just fascinating. Like, like, how did I never hear about this stuff? Like, it's so great. But yeah, that's really what happens. And but again, you could just learn things from like Jesus or the Pope or Buddha. I mean, I'm not saying you should out of any of those people, but what you do is the best way that we found really is to just see their example and how they lived and how they figured it out, and then take it in and see what resonates with you. Use that, use the trivium method, right? The input. You input all this information from these gurus and stuff, what they send, then you process it. What makes sense to me? I don't know, man. I'm not going to go in the desert for 40 days. That's pretty crazy. I might get thrown in a mental institution, or you might want to go in the desert for 40 days because it's the best thing that ever happened to you. But whatever works for you, and then you output it. You create some art, you use it for your dharma, you make a song, you have a podcast, you whatever it is, and you have some form of creative expression, you express it out in the world. And yeah, I'm done now.
Yeah. So it's funny because this whole concept of like putting people on the pedestal and stuff came up for me because I was like, okay, not only did I read that part in that book, everything was just synchronicity, right? But then I came across these oracle decks and stuff that I was looking at into for some reason. I just like saw somebody mention it somewhere and I was like, oh, like that's cool. Let me look into these. And then it was on Amazon and I was like, why can I only find used cards of these decks like by this one lady? And her name is Doreen Virtue. I don't know if anybody knows who she is, but apparently in the new age community, she was very well known. She had written tons of books and created tons of oracle and tarot decks. And I found out later because I kept looking, I'm like, what is going on here? And I found out this lady had renounced all of that and had said that Jesus came to her and told her that um, it wasn't godly or something what she was doing. And she then said later that she always felt like a Christian and that when she was doing all these things, it didn't always feel like she was doing what she should be doing. So, in other words, she was like not being authentic with her own self. Like, if she always wanted to be a Christian, then she should have just always been a Christian, right? But so then she felt she had to like abandon all of that and told Hay House, the publishing company, that she didn't want any more proceeds from it, that she wanted to stop all sales of it. But in the future, if they were going to sell it, like to take her name off or whatever. Um, and I found these two articles, which I can later link in the description, but I found these two articles about it and it was very fascinating. I wanted maybe to read from it a little bit if you guys don't mind. Would you mind?
No, no, please do. And I have a couple comments after.
Do you have comments now? I can let you.
Yeah, I could totally
Yeah.
because when you first told me about this, I was like, oh, I think I had the reaction that maybe some people that are watching this might have, like, oh, she got sucked into Christianity or whatever, or oh, but think about what we were just saying right before all this about cults. Maybe Jesus came to her because her ego was like getting out of control. And I mean, there's a lot to be said for tarot decks. They're just a tool. So maybe she just saw people using this tool in a way that was detrimental somehow on like a physical level. Maybe people were just whatever it is. And so because of this, or maybe that's just how she felt. Because of that, she tried to stop her own cult. Maybe she felt like she was becoming a cult leader. So she just gave it all to Jesus and God bless her, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we should judge. And that's a way to look at it without judging. Maybe she saw that happening. People were starting to kind of worship her and she was just like, whoa. So who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah. So
Or
I'll
maybe she
just
got
read.
kicked by a horse and, no, I'm just, you never know. I'm just saying.
Can you guys see this? Okay.
Oh yeah, it looks good to me.
All
What
right.
about you?
So I'm just gonna read a little bit from this lady. I guess her name is Dr. Leslie Phillips, and I guess she has a podcast. Just this section here was kind of interesting. I mean, the whole article's good. I skimmed through it, but I just want to read a little bit. The Doreen virtue conversion may be your awakening.
Oh.
And so you have put all your faith in this one person and following this one person, then what that person is no longer fulfilling. Wait, maybe it's a translation of the podcast. You know what I mean? So she's
Yeah.
talking.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, what
Makes
that
sense.
when that person is no longer fulfilling that role for you, it's enormous. Who you think is an excellent spiritual teacher may disappoint you. There can be a good approach to how you might see somebody that you're putting in the in the position of being your spiritual teacher. Think of them as somebody who is like a signpost holder. They are holding signposts to point you in a direction. They show the way along a path and take you on a tour. They can point out the pertinent points of interest. As a spiritual leader, a way shower, their role is to help you find your spiritual direction. That direction should always help you connect with your own information and help you step into your own power. And really, that's what developing intuition is about. Your intuition is about you connecting with your own higher information. That's the purpose of your intuition. If you ever meet a teacher who wants you to revere them, kiss their feet, or cater to their ego somehow, definitely go in the other direction. If you meet a teacher that perhaps isn't like that, but for some reason you feel like you may want to do that, run, that is, then take a good look at yourself because what you are doing is putting that person in a position of authority and power over you, and you are invalidating yourself. You've seen these so-called gurus, spiritual teachers, spiritual leaders who start out on a genuine spiritual path, but they trip over their ego. They get caught slipping back into their ego. They may have genuinely spiritual information, which is then misused and abused instead of being used in a way that benefits others. It may be used in the way of promoting self-interest. Often those people end up believing they are the great message, not just presenting the information. This is not limited to just spiritual teachers.
You don't say.
Basically, everyone who has some form of growth information for you. Talk about being at the Thanksgiving table, trying to wake people up about something. People such as personal development leaders, many people have good information. And if you can glean what really applies to you, this is what we always say on the show, and use that in your life, in your spiritual and personal life and worldly life, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But when they want you to kowtow to them, then you should beware. History is full of wonderful leaders that do precisely that. They begin on the right path, meaning well, and then the power or the money colors their eyes. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
So take home the message, listeners. Take the information that works for you, but never give up your seniority to do so. You have heard this before. Take what works for you and discard the rest. Never give up your seniority to a teacher. Never put them in a position where you do not have your own free will not to make your own choices. I think she meant where you don't have your free will to make a choice. Anyway, if you do, it is tantamount to brainwashing or programming. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
They want to alter your personal belief system. Could it be?
It could.
You may be brainwashed to give of yourself in ways that are inappropriate or uncomfortable, whether it's money or sex or something else. There are many examples of this classic tale. And it's unfortunate because all of those spiritual belief systems have some excellent information. Some recent historical examples of these bad gurus are Charles Manson, Jim Jones, Marshall Applewhite, the Heaven's Gate cult leader, who had everyone commit suicide because they were going to take a ride on Halley's Comet, or David Koresh of Waco, Texas fame. All of these leaders were basically what you call out of control trance mediums. They developed a very powerful crown chakra that provides a magnetic personality and the ability to entrance people so that people lose their own individual connection with their own information.
Whoa. I like it. Sounds,
Yeah.
as Spoon says, sounds like the interesting part of the surrender process. Letting something go takes us one place, and then after a period of time, we see it took us into another polarity. The trip back can be humbling. Yeah. But no, as to what you said, that is, it's just mind blowing.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating.
And you know, the I was gonna say, but I didn't want to interrupt you. The sign that you know from watching all these documentaries and things about cults, the minute the leader wants to have sex with your wife or someone's wife, just be like, yeah, that's a great idea. We'll be right back. And then
Or
just,
you if you're a woman.
or yeah, if you're a woman, and especially if your husband's like, yeah, we should do this, be like, I'll be right back. I just gotta go
And fucking leave.
get the fuck out. Yeah, because it's like that's all. It's funny, and they always wait till the end to be like, and then and I'm like, yeah, well, spoiler alert, what he started, because you like feel bad for these people, and then it's terrible. But anywho, yeah, that's the point where you just know that you gotta go. So, I mean, you could get out before then if you see the signs, but that's after that point, it's like I'm not really feeling bad for it anymore. But yeah, I see how it works though. I'm not judging the people. I could see how the psychology of it works and all that stuff, and how the need for this validation, because from what I see is it's like this one leader comes in, and he has all these great ideas and everyone's like, yeah, and he's kind of counterculture. He's pointing out what's going on in society, That guy, what was his name? Dwight, whatever. I'm so bad at these things. But anyway, and then people get in under him and they're like, yeah, and they become his like lieutenants, like his right hand man, like it's like a gang. And those people are the ones that are really, and it seems that they just are looking for that exterior validation, this thing we talk about all the time. And then they just kind of go along with everything, and it just becomes a slippery slope of like, craziness until before long, they're just, yeah. So, anywho, I like how you
Yeah.
brought that. Yeah, it's
Thank
nuts.
you. So yeah, I mean these things happen all the time. Um, and I mean there's another book I'm reading. I want to read some more, but I don't want to like I hope I'm not boring you guys by reading all this
What do you guys
stuff.
think in the chat? I think it's, I think it's great. These are like the warning signs, and this is why we're talking about it, because if we feel like people that listen to the, not people, not you guys out there listening to the show, but a person who would come across the show and be like pits and pedestals, might be open to this kind of information, because we're always interested in like new information and like counter stuff and like what's the truth, and society's inverted. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it's better to go down the rabbit holes and to look into like what makes yourself tick and get to know yourself and all this stuff, because it's really twofold. Because first, you don't really, in my case, and a lot of people have talked about this, you start to care less about all of what's going on in the world and stuff, is one thing. And then you really start to judge it less, and the fear kind of goes away, because you realize that you are significant, and you do have a purpose, and everything you're doing probably is for a reason, right? So, and just like you read earlier, I forget what it was from exactly, or oh no, we read it in the card. Yeah, that's right, the Eight of Pentacles. It said something about, you're always on your path, kind of, you just slow down and look and see that you're always there. So anyway, the reason I brought all this up was to say that for people, these are the warning signs, of this stuff, or even inside yourself, because we're not trying to point the finger and say it's the cult leader's fault. Because guess what? Jim Jones didn't force Kool-Aid down anyone's throat. Well, who knows how that really happened. But the official story, right? Like all these cult leaders, they wouldn't be anybody if they didn't have people behind them.
Yeah.
And
Like
that's, people forget about. They want to find a scapegoat, right? They want to find that one guy who's responsible for all of it. And it's like, yeah, but that guy was just saying words and people just did it for him. Like he was just I'm not saying he's not culpable or liable or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's like what I used to say all the time about George Bush, George W. Bush, what with his terror. Like everyone was so mad because he started all these wars, Afghanistan and Iraq. I
Tara? Tarot?
terror, terror. These,
War
I'm
on
trying to,
tarot.
Saddam. I'm trying to think of it. It's been so long. I did just see a cool thing on Instagram about George Bush. It was from the inauguration, I guess, and it was just
Wait,
him, and
lots of memes. There's like hundreds of those memes. Cody's been showing them to me. They're freaking hilarious.
he
Like the
was just
faces
like,
he makes, he's like,
he was totally tripping. I don't care what anybody says. And so, yeah, so you could demonize the guy, but all he was doing was talking into a microphone, and then everybody else went to war and did these things. I'm not saying that again, he has his responsibilities and whatever, but other people, and mostly then those questions, and when you say those things, really what it does is forces people to look in the mirror, right? I just looked at a mirror that I have right here. It forces them to look in the mirror and say, well, oh, wait, how is my behavior contributing to the war in Iraq? It's stuff like that. Anyway, I'm trying to back up to see where I got to that. Anyway, George Bush, good guy. No, he's
don't
a,
put people on a pedestal or
yeah,
put them in a
yeah.
pit either, because,
Yeah, oh,
in the
that's what I was
end,
saying.
yeah,
Cult
go ahead.
leaders, but go ahead. Yeah, it's because when people have him on a pedestal, and now I see they're interviewing him. Now they have the guy in the pit. It's like, it's fine. I get it. You probably, he had sex with your wife. He did all these terrible things. You're right to say bad things about him or whatever. But it's that same cycle, and that's what society will do. They'll be like, look at this guy, we're throwing him in the pit.
But
We
if
got to
it, but it's like pointing the finger when, of course, you have three pointing back at you, right? It's like when Jesus said, let he who is without sin cast the first stone at this alleged adulteress. Where's the adulterer that she was with? You guys didn't bring him. Where's he? You just brought her, and now you're trying to throw stones at her. Why is it okay for him and not her?
Yeah, and speaking of Jesus and this pit and pedestal stuff, I think it's even bad. It could be that it's wrong to put Jesus on a pedestal, because if you see things that Jesus allegedly said, which are, you will do greater works, things as me and
Yeah.
greater, or whatever. Basically, Jesus like, it will go on to do better things. But if
Mm-hmm.
you have him on a pedestal, then you can't wrap
You
your head
can't
around,
exactly,
because you probably hate yourself, right? And then so you're like, well, how could I be better than Jesus? Because I'm a piece of
exactly.
shit. That's what you're
Yeah.
thinking, right? You have
Yeah,
this, yep.
exactly. Because he didn't try to elevate himself above you. He said you would do greater things. You don't want to believe him, though. I say that about Christians a lot. They don't want to believe what Jesus actually said.
Some do, which is a beautiful thing. That's why we don't
Mhm.
demonize anything. Because I've
I
met
know.
people that are Christians, and
Even in my cult that I grew up in,
yeah,
that 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 guy, the alleged whatever he was,
ringleader. No, I'm just kidding.
the alleged prophet that he said well, it's funny is he never really said it. I think people put him there and he just allowed it. But he even quoted Jesus and said, "You shall do greater things." So he was always saying that too. So that's probably why I was like, yeah, of course, because I grew up with, you know, some of those things that other Christians don't really believe. I believed them. I believe
Yeah,
what Jesus said. I do. I do.
yeah. I remember even as a child, somebody I would know somebody that knew someone that died, and they'd be like, "Oh, why did God take this person?" And I'd be like, "Didn't you read the same Bible I did? Like, I don't think it's saying that God's killing people. Like, didn't you?" And I just didn't have the words to enunciate it, because I was like, 8. But I'm like, come on, guys, like, you don't get it. I do. It's so simple. A child can understand it. Isn't that
Why did
crazy?
Jesus say become like little children? Because little children will believe what Jesus said.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny, because I do this thing that I used to do a lot, which I don't do now. I see as a pattern back then, but I would just assume that everybody else read the Bible, and that, they were getting it. It's like, oh wait, because I'd hear the priest or the pastor up there being like, you have to read your Bible. And I felt bad because I only read a little bit a day. And I'm like, I gotta be reading more. But what I didn't realize is he was talking to the people that never even open their
Never,
Bibles.
never. I
Oh,
know. I know. Because I was one of those people that didn't do it either, only when people at church read it. Right. And then in 2017, between that for the next few years, I was reading or listening to the audio Bible every day. And on top of that, I was doing more studies. Like if I found something in that scripture of the day, or I was reading all these Christian books, I was always looking up more things and like deep diving on them. So I was like, after that, I was like, I know what it says. Like, you can't tell me something's in there because I'm pretty sure I'll remember. I read it pretty much like 3 times over, if not more. New Testament, I read more than that, but yeah.
yeah, it's
No.
it's and that's another part of this, which is the whole pit and pedestal thing. Is a lot of people that get caught up in the pit and pedestal thing, they're not actually, they're just getting caught up with the air, right? With the words. They're just hearing all this lovely words, and they're like, yeah, this is great. But they're not looking at the actions of the leader, or really their own actions, because again, why? They probably hate themselves. So they're probably think what they're doing is terrible, or whatever. They're not doing enough, or they're not good enough. So they kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? They just ignore it. Ignorance.
Yeah. It's kind of like being in love with somebody
Yeah.
blindly.
Yeah.
without recognizing their faults, like, oh no, they're great, they're perfect. And all you see is like everything's beautiful, and they're perfect. Everything's perfect. And yes, everything is perfect, but
I know what you mean. Yes.
yeah,
You ignore the red flags
yeah,
sometimes,
you
right?
ignore the
And
red flags.
I think a lot of that comes from people because they don't feel like they're good enough. So they kind of feel like they have someone tricked. They're like, oh, I tricked this person because they don't know the real me.
Mm.
If they knew the real me, so I'll put up with this real them and I'll put up with their little things. And you make covert contracts and you're like, hopefully they'll put up with my little foibles. And so it's the same thing for a cult leader though, right? Or whatever it is. Anything you're putting on the pedestal, you do the same thing because at the end of the day, everyone take a drink. At the end of the day, you're really putting yourself in the pit, right? You're the one who's
Yeah,
kind of in
if you
the
put
pit.
someone on the pedestal, where are you? You must be in the pit, apparently.
Yeah. And then you just got to dig a deeper pit to shove someone else in to blame
Yeah.
everything on so you can
Yeah.
repress it all because it's not your fault, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's how we think. We're like, oh, yeah. And then, but secretly we know it all. And so that's why, again, it's this vicious cycle where we hate ourselves because we know we're doing all this, but we don't consciously realize it all the time. I know I didn't. It's just like a vicious. And so that's why it's so simple, really, to just start being okay with the things that you do. Cause then it kind of undoes all this hate. You're like, fuck it. I don't care if I'm going to go
The
get
letting go
hammered.
process.
Let's go get hammered and party and end up in a fucking gutter. And, like,
Maybe that will be your wake up call, your rock
yeah,
bottom.
exactly. Maybe that, but at least you're having fun and you're in the moment and you're enjoying it, because then you're going to be like, maybe we don't have to go so hard next time. Right.
Exactly.
Cause you don't
That's,
need stuff.
yeah. And I can say from experience that going to the extreme of drinking too much and then waking up and feeling like crap and like not being able to even do anything the next day, it's like, you know what? I could do without that. Next time, I think I'm going to really scale that back. And, maybe another time you do it again and you're just like, no, I want another drink. I want one more. And you do it again. But then you're like, oh, this is getting annoying. Like, I don't like this. And eventually you're just like, you know what? I'm good with like no more than like two or three drinks and for one day, like not
You got
overdoing it,
you
like
got to go by the Linda Belcher. She's a character on Bob's Burgers, which I recommend for everybody to watch. It's so great. She's a character and she's the mother of and
okay.
there's three kids. And so they have like for some reason they're in the house. I don't know, it's like snowing or whatever. And she's like, we're gonna have a cocktail party. And they're like, young kids and not a real cocktail party. But she's like, I'm gonna show you how to act. And so she shows them all the etiquette. And then she's like, three drinks. She's like two and a half drinks. She's like, the first
Yeah.
one you drink fast so you can loosen up. The second one you nurse. The third one you don't finish. You just leave. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's perfect.
It is. It is. And like sometimes I just like if I nurse two drinks all night, I'm fine. Like I have
Yeah.
no issues. Even
Yeah,
if
you can.
even if I'm nursing three drinks in one day, I'm fine. Like it doesn't even affect me. Sometimes I don't even get buzzed at all. So um it's just that for me, I like hard kombucha and I like the flavor of it. So it's like having a soda, because I used to drink soda. Um and but I don't have to do it every day. I don't have to indulge in it because I've learned. And I had to learn that with coffee too. Like, you know, it's like
Mhm.
because I didn't like the way I felt when I drank too much coffee. It was too jittery. It just felt anxious. I didn't like it. So
Yeah,
you
that's
can,
why I never drank coffee when I was younger because I would always be like climbing the walls. But now that I like mix it with butter, it's like I don't know if it releases it slower or whatever. It's yeah,
oh,
but I hear
interesting. I drink it cold, so the butter's not
mm,
gonna work for that.
coagulation.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
that's the thing. Like I could be like, oh, this is the best, and I'm gonna put it. Everybody should do it and drink this coffee. It's like it's what works for me.
mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
at this moment.
and do what works for you. But speaking of other books I've been reading, this book called The Gnostic Jung, as in Carl Jung. Ooh, and the Seven Sermons to the Dead. The Seven Sermons to the Dead is a like little small like piece of writing that Carl
Oh,
Jung wrote.
oh,
It's
that's yeah,
very
that sounds familiar.
esoteric, very deep, very like say that again?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. And this guy, Stephan Hoeller, I think is how you pronounce it. He's originally Hungarian and he was like Hungarian kind of nobility, I think, but he left Hungary, he fled and he came to the States and then but he discovered Carl Jung's stuff because of the Seven Sermons to the Dead, and that's what kind of brought him into those ideas. And he's like, they were very Gnostic ideas, very interesting. So I've been reading it, and like yesterday and today, I was like, dude, I want to read from the book because it's like, it's crazy how it's kind of like talking about what we're going to talk about today. So if
Yeah.
you guys don't mind, I'm going to share again. And if you want to read some of it too, Bree, tell me. Do you want to read some of it too?
Yeah, I'd love to
You
read
don't
some
have
of it.
to, but
Oh, I love reading. I'm just looking at the chat really quick.
okay, well, you do that. And if you want to read, or if you want to interrupt me for anything, we can talk about what we just read. And we'll just
Tony
get to where we get.
Tony Corleolis, what's up? By the way, I didn't say hi to you yet. He says I don't nurse drinks well. Good answer. Oh, that reminds me. Yeah, that's a great idea, Sharon. You could do that. But I was just gonna say when you were talking about drinking too much, I was gonna be like, what does Sharon consider drinking too much? Because it's probably not the same definition of
Yeah, it isn't because honestly,
like five.
yeah, 4 or 5, right?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
that's
that's
probably,
still
I'm guessing that's probably the max I've ever done. I don't think I've ever hit more than that. I don't remember though. I just, because for me, like drinking something too fast, especially if it's wine or, you know, whatever, even hard kombucha, I just get, because I don't like beer, but I get sleepy. I get
uh,
just kind of like, oh, I'm tired. And like, so all it does for me is make me fall asleep. So if I've had too much wine, I just need to go to sleep now. And then it works itself out.
oh,
But
I got signed out of YouTube. Hilarious. That's why I couldn't chat in there. Sorry.
oh, what happened?
I don't
Are you
know.
back
It's
in?
still going. Yeah, it's still live. It's just it signed me out of Google. 13 concurrent viewers. We have an average view duration of 25 minutes. That's pretty good for an hour and 42, 29 views. Wow. Thanks everybody who's sticking along for the whole or most of this.
Yeah. John Chase
Um,
says, I like mine Irish, as in like, oh, Irish coffee
I
with
nurse my Irish coffee in the
with
morning.
Jameson and Irish cream.
Yeah. I nurse it and then, once noon hits, I go right to the bottle now. Let's do it. We're bodying. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so if you want to bring that up and read it, I guess, unless there's more.
Okay, let's do it. We'll see how far we get.
Okay.
It's just like this whole part is really good. You can see how many freaking highlights I did. So I mean,
Oh,
I was
Kathleen
like,
asked, what are
oh,
you doing for Imbolc, which is
I
the go ahead.
go ahead. The Irish,
It's
it's a Celtic,
pagan, yeah,
yeah.
Celtic as it's a holiday that comes in between like the solstice and the
Mhm.
equinox or
Yeah, I
something.
think I've heard of Imbolc. I don't,
Kathleen.
I don't celebrate it, so I don't know. But yeah,
I have a feeling my lovely woman and I are going to be celebrating it in a certain way, but
okay.
I'm excited. Nothing too crazy, but we got the fireplace going, so we might do something with that. Who knows?
A little ceremony.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. We're gonna start the pyramid scheme. Oh, I forgot when Adam was in here, I wanted to tell him about the pyramid scheme if he's still listening. I wanted to get him in on that. That's okay.
Greatest pyramid scheme ever.
That's right. It's the oversharing pyramid scheme. Okay, yeah, cool. All right. Yeah, you could bring it up, my bad. Oh, wait, did she say more? Let's see. Oh, Bridget.
Bridget and
Yes,
fire.
Bridget. Yes, yes, yes. Bridget and fire. That's what. Yes, my lovely
Sweet.
woman knows all about that stuff. She was telling me about it.
Very cool. All right. Well, here is the Gnostic Jung and the Seven Sermons to the Dead by Stephen Hoeller. I'll start here. The beginning of it's one of the chapters in here, 38% into the book. Human life and experience ever plays itself out between the tension of two opposites, God and devil. If you read that really fast, it looks like good and evil.
Oh,
God and devil, good and evil, same thing,
oh,
right?
good call.
Yeah. Fighting heroes and villainous dragons. Fratricidal Cain and murdered Abel are all representatives of the recurring motifs depicting symbolically the interaction of the opposing dualities. In his work, The Archetypes of the Collective Unconscious, Jung restates the message contained in the second sermon when he says, evil is the necessary opposite of good, without which there would be no good either. This quote we already used in a previous episode. It is impossible even to think evil out of existence. Jung was insistent, especially on the reality and titanic magnitude of evil, where he felt that Western humanity, beginning with Christian theology, had consistently and disastrously dwarfed the picture of evil as arising from the unconscious of humanity. In Civilization in Transition, he wrote that evil is of gigantic proportions, so that for the church to talk of original sin and to trace it back to Adam's relatively innocent slip up with Eve is almost a euphemism. The case is far graver and is grossly underestimated. Would you like to make any comments on that? This part right
Um,
here, the
uh,
orange,
I,
or any
I
part of
think what's that? I mean, I just think it's funny because it seems that they all try to blame all this evil in this original sin and trace it all the way back to
something that happened in the garden.
yeah, in the garden. And I've also heard it Adam didn't his sin was that he didn't question God, like he just believed the devil, and he didn't go to God and ask him, like that's original sin. Like, why would you just trust the devil and not ask God, kind of stuff.
Okay.
um it's almost a euphemism. Yeah, the case is far graver. Goes, yeah, it's funny that they want to, it's like the pit, this is what they're using as a scapegoat, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Um, yeah, it is. I just wanted to hear your thoughts because I wasn't quite sure what to make of this comment here, but um, I guess he's saying that, you know, if it is so that Adam made such a Adam made this small slip up, but yet it was huge ramifications. So now that everybody is friggin' has this like fallen nature and evilness to them or whatever, then why put it in the Bible as such a euphemism? Like, and like, oh, he just like all he did was like listen to his wife and like,
Oh, I see what
you
you're
know,
saying. Yeah, yeah.
eat from the apple and oh, it's not that big of a deal, but he did this little thing, but it had huge ramifications. I don't know. It just it's it's silly, right? I think
Yeah,
that's
it is
kind of
kind
what
of
he's
so, but they
claiming.
do. I mean, they do kind of curse him, Adam. Like,
Yeah,
like,
but like for what? Because he ate a little
yeah,
fruit. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why he's saying it's a euphemism for what they're trying to say is such a huge thing.
yeah. No, I see what you're saying, and it's very symbolic, right?
Yeah.
Like
And some
they,
people go ahead.
I was gonna say they use this euphemism and this idea of somebody just eating the forbidden fruit, but what they're probably pointing to people that are trying to like figure shit out for themselves or whatever, and just not following God's ultimate law. So it seems to be that whole message is being used in a way to kind of keep these cults going, because it's like, no, look at Adam, he fucked up, he didn't
And
listen,
all he did was listen to
and
his
all he
wife.
did was eat the wrong fruit.
Yeah. Um, so what's funny is, okay, so in certain circles, and I found this uh early in life, because when I was growing up in the cult I grew up in, that cult believed that the original sin was actually sex. Sex was the original sin. And that's why in that cult it was like very, like, the whole sex topic was like weird, it was all taboo and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, a lot of people believe the original sin was sex. So, and like in the last several years, that topic has kind of come back up, because when I was listening back, well, this is how I met Adam, when we were in the live chats for Zen Garcia and like Rob Skiba and stuff. I think they were reading texts that were talking about stuff kind of like on that spectrum, on that realm. So it's kind of like come back up as a topic. But yeah. Anyway, I can keep reading
But
unless you have something else to say.
no, I think that's good for now.
All right. Do you
It'll.
want to read or do you want me to read?
Where are we? We're done at the orange, right?
Yeah, and you can read this if you want, but whatever. I don't know who Chesterton is, but you can read it if you want.
Okay. Chesterton made his clerical detective F.R. Brown exclaim, "Of course I believe in the devil. If I did not, I should have to believe that I am the devil myself." Yes, exactly what we're talking about. Exoteric religion, in spite of its reductionisms and superficialities, is rooted in a now lost but once potent gnosis, and thus the religious preachments about the opposition of God and devil are not as lacking in psychological reality as one might at first assume. Hmm.
What do you think of that?
I think that it's talking about like the roots of this exoteric religion
Mm-hmm.
and how that, this God and devil stuff is really like in people's heads, kind of, not as lacking in psychological reality as one might first assume.
Maybe reading more will give us more insight.
Prior to the advent of depth psychology, man had no rational alternative to the religious dogma according to which all good things come from God, while mysterious bad things come from the devil.
Mm.
Yeah, so I think what he's saying is like, when you rooted now lost once yeah, so I
Basically,
think
go ahead.
what I was going to say is basically because the exoteric religions will tell you that it's just good and evil, the God and the devil, and I think what he's saying is that now that we're looking into psychology and stuff, we're realizing that no, it's not really that. It's like,
Yeah, it's deeper than that. There's more to it.
yeah, mm-hmm.
You want to keep reading or you want me to?
Sure. Prior to the advent, okay, with the coming of the various depth psychological disciplines after the year 1900, it became increasingly clear to many that what were previously conceived to be extra psychic and non-human sources of good and evil in reality reside in the human psyche itself. Yeah, there we go. Thus, God and devil are revealed as mighty oppositional principles operating within us.
Mm-hmm. Just like
Freud
the
gave,
Bible said, it's all
yeah,
within you.
could it be?
I think James talks about it and Romans talks about it, Paul, the book of Romans.
Yeah. Freud gave utterance to a recognition closely approximating the insights of Jung when he revised and reduced his once in far more complex instinct theory to the existence of two great instincts named after deities of antiquity: Eros, life itself, and
Life
Thanos,
instinct.
oh, life instinct, and Thanos, that's yeah,
Thanatos. Thanatos.
Thanatos, not the Marvel character. Death instinct. Interesting. The second sermon expresses a very similar concept when it attributes fullness and generation to God and emptiness and destruction to the devil. God, the all begetter, stands opposed to the devil, the all devourer. It reminds you of Hinduism, kind of, but it's just
Yes,
in the
Shiva.
wrong way, right? People are just misinterpreting it.
Mm-hmm. Brahman and Shiva
Yeah, and in
or
Hinduism, most
Kali.
people realize that what that represents, they don't think it's like a real. I mean, technically it is because everything dies and gets destroyed, but they're not in fear of it and worried about it, and they're not blaming Shiva for devouring
Yeah,
everything.
exactly. They realize it's a principle and they call it Shiva.
And it's a process that's
Yeah.
natural, right?
It's like a metaphor basically, but they use a what would be thought of as a deity to um
Yeah,
kind of anthropomorphize, maybe anthropomorphize isn't the right word, but to like make it human so you can have like this ability to think about it in a different way.
yeah. No, anthropomorphize works for me. I mean, it might not be the exact thing, but I
I
know what you're
think
saying
that's
when you say that.
yeah, I'm trying to remember if anthropomorphize is to like make it animal or make it
Yeah,
human.
that's what I was. It
To
might be.
ascribe human form or attributes to animal, plant, material, object, etc. So
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know that it's quite exactly that, but is that smoky quartz?
La la la. It's fluorite.
Oh, okay.
Fluorite. I keep it with the Thoth deck. It's a pretty cool little piece. I've had it
This
for
is
quite
my
some time.
this is my smoky quartz.
Yeah.
Looks like yours. It's a palm
Oh, we should
stone.
unshare.
Yeah,
Un.
hold on.
For kind of show off our. Trying to get
Oh,
sun.
that's funny. It's about the same size too.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Oh, it's got some. Oh no, it's got like some black in it. It's really cool.
Nice.
Blackety black black. There we
Um,
go.
do you want to shall we keep reading?
Sure. We're not on fluorite vision. Okay. I'm like a child with crystals. It's great.
Okay, I'll start here. An ancient magical statement declared demon est deus inversus. The devil is God turned upside down. Interestingly, the Judeo Christian Islamic tradition is alone in insisting on attributing the quality of moral evil to the upside down God. In Taoism, yin and yang are both equally void of moral qualities of good or evil. I think we see that in the Tao, right?
Yeah, totally.
While in Hindu and Mahayana Buddhist mythology, the destructive and terrifying deities are simply referred to as wrathful, but not as evil. Yeah, I mean, as I've been reading about, the world religions from Houston Smith in that book, yeah, I see that. Um, the votaries of these faiths, and I think these are like faithful followers, right? The faithful followers of these faiths inevitably seem to recognize that it is through the cooperation of both the wrathful and the benevolent principles that humanity and the cosmos are brought to perfection and spiritual fullness. In the second sermon, Jung is concerned with the existence of a primal dichotomy within the psyche, a dichotomy which is united by a mysterious reconciling power of existential activity named by Jung on the Basilidian model as abraxas. That's something that's still a little bit like I'm not very certain about. I don't quite understand this part right here. But these two
It
polar
looks like it's some kind of model that he has.
yeah,
All right.
these two polar deities of God and devil, or we can say good and evil, are definite because they force human beings to endure psychic conflict and to make painful decisions. Yet these conflicts and decisions do not occur in a vacuum. Life is lived in a force field of activity, of happening, and it is this stream of happening that balances and creatively reconciles the apparently irreconcilable conflictual elements in living. Do you want me to keep reading or do you want to read?
I could read, I guess, a little
Okay.
more. Unlike some other schools of thought, Jung never envisioned the absence of conflict as a desirable course for human consciousness. Oh, that's so interesting, right? It's
Right?
like there's going to be conflict. Like that's
Yeah.
part of it. Yeah. And if you accept it, then maybe there's less. It is by
Mm.
the conflict of will and counter will, of yes and no, by affirmation and negation, and in the resolution of these conflicts by decisions in the world of action that our ultimate selfhood unfolds. Wow.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Could it be? Moral opposites, thus, are as much a part of the process of growth toward wholeness as are opposites of another character. Wow. Yeah. See, and it's funny because that's why I like to read when you read a tarot card, I like to read the
Yes.
reversed too,
Both.
because you get a better picture of what it
Yeah,
means.
I
It's
do too.
opposite.
Yeah.
The apophatic method,
Mm-hmm.
religare, the simplistic notion represented by exoteric religion is that we have God, who is light, goodness, positiveness, affirmation, and benevolence, while on the other hand, we have the principle of evil, envisioned primarily as the absence of good, an abyss of negativity, denial, malevolence. This religiosity,
Religiosity.
religiosity declares that it is the duty of the human being to struggle against the negative pole and to strive toward the positive pole. Thus, the good is within God and the bad outside God, and we are between the two, trying to follow the good, but usually failing to do so with any degree of effectiveness. Yeah, and then we hate ourselves. Jung was profoundly dissatisfied with this view and felt that it was psychologically unsound. Yeah, that and psychologically unsound. What's it do? It creates people who are a little mentally unwell. But
Yeah.
a
The
little.
people
It
that
just
end up in all these psych hospitals and stuff.
yeah, and all that means is there's just an unbalance, either
Yeah.
psych hospital or self medication with all kinds of stuff.
Escapism.
Yeah. Gubernare. Within the cover, within the context of Jung's psychological thinking, good and evil are not absolutes, but man-made judgments dependent on the values impressed upon humanity by culture and religion. It's like
Which
coming
is
full circle.
what we were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah,
About like
yeah,
in
that's
this society, we wear clothes. So we just wear it because that's how we grew up. But other people in other societies live in barely any clothes and walk around, practically nude. And those things are just normal for them. There's no uh excess of, or there's no like, well, not that we know of, but it doesn't seem like there's any problems with that. Um so I'll keep reading. Um
moreover.
Moreover, even within a generally accepted framework of more or less evident moral demands of a natural morality, it is fairly clear that good and evil are not the two opposite poles of a linear dimensionality. Listen to this because I need to maybe understand this better. Rather, they might be said to resemble a circle wherein going far enough in either direction is likely to associate one with the opposite polarity. As Jung himself phrased it, in the last resort, there is no good that cannot produce evil and no evil that cannot produce good. Would you please comment on that?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so moreover, even within generally acceptable framework of more or less evident moral demands of a natural morality, it is fairly clear that good and evil are not the two opposite poles. Yeah, it's kind of like it reminds me what we were talking about, and this isn't exactly what he's saying, but it's just the cycles that we get stuck in, right? It's the good, and we're doing good, and then we don't do good, and we're doing
Or
evil,
the
and it's just
pendulum.
that's really what it is. It keeps you swinging back and forth, really. And if you look at it, though, it's just like the Kabbalion says. Really, it's a polarity. It's opposite ends of a scale, right? Or you could look at it as a circle, resemble a circle, wherein going far enough in any other direction, it's likely to associate one with the opposite polarity. Because if you even think of a
A
pendulum, it's kind of
pendulum, it's going in a circular motion.
yeah,
Yes.
it's like half of a circle, right?
Yes.
Could have
Yes.
you could have like a wheel of fortune. What's Da, 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 da. No, that's the Price is Right. What's the Wheel of Fortune?
I don't remember.
Anyway, I'll Can I get an N, Pat? No. All right,
Can
everybody.
I get an I? Just kidding.
Can I get a GHT? Night. We're spelling night, everybody. All right. We
No,
like
it
night.
needs a K in front of it. Knight. The Knight
Yes.
of Swords.
There we go.
Just kidding.
Yeah, so perfect. Love it. It's a perfect circle.
Yeah. Um, let me see what's left here. Oh yeah, there's still more that's interesting. Shall we keep reading?
Yeah, let's go.
I can do it quickly or if you want to.
Yeah, so we're at polarity, right? As
We're right
Jung,
we're
huh?
right here. Well,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
you can read that again and if you want to comment on it.
There's no good that can. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. As Jung himself paraphrased it in The Last Resort, there is no good that cannot produce evil, and no evil that cannot produce good. It's a circle. One might justifiably ask some fairly weighty questions at this point, such as what does this mean in practical terms? Are persons capable of valid moral choices, and can they resolve the eternal moral conflicts in their lives? Or should they give up in despair and discard such notions as good and evil? Desirable and undesirable altogether. Oh, yeah, there's more.
Mm.
To answer these questions is exceedingly difficult, for
It's
upon such.
nuanced, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's really what he's saying.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna kind of skim our times. Yeah, I like how you highlighted because it's kind of.
Shall we just read some of the
I
highlights?
think, yeah, I think so. The key to the entire issue of the psychology of ethics is once again to be found in the fatal one-sidedness of Western culture. The Judeo-Christian ethic insists that the resolution of moral conflict must come about in the lives of persons by way of a conscious, rational choice. Yeah, so they're like, you have to choose to do it, right? That's,
Yeah, I'll just read this part. As long as the
yeah,
human
yeah.
being adheres to the externally revealed law and clings to the consciously recognized moral imperatives, striving to do good and abstaining from doing evil, all is well. It is all just a matter of choices made by consciousness and implemented by the rational will. If one is unwilling to follow this one sided program, then one is accounted unworthy, sinful, subject to the directions of dark, diabolical powers. In contradistinction to this time hollowed but disastrous attitude, Jung advances the proposition that moral conflict cannot be resolved by consciousness alone, and that traditional moral values and codes cannot be considered the ultimate authority. In addition to the conscious and its commandment, the unconscious and its command must also be taken into account. All right, well, I'll skip all this a little bit here. He stated, however, that in addition to the outer world responsibility is, oh, sorry. He stated, however, that in addition to the outer world, there should be a comma there, responsibility is owed to the inner world. Man does not live by the bread of the conventions of society alone, because the Bible says man shall not live by bread alone, right? But he also needs the nourishment that comes from the portion of himself that is older and far more powerful than state, church, society, or even family. We owe worship to the light, but the darkness needs and deserves our homage also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm
unlimited power.
going to skip a little this and go. Unlike the one sided God concept of conventional religiosity, the God image of Jung and his gnosis contains will and counter will, God and devil, good and evil. In his truly Gnostic work entitled A Psychological Approach to the Dogma of the Trinity, Jung wrote, and this is in tiny text, sorry about this, the ability to, quote, will otherwise, end quote, must, unfortunately, be real if ethics are to make any sense at all. Anyone who submits to the law from the start or to what is generally expected acts like the man in the parable who buried his talent in the earth. That's a good parable, by the way. We'll probably talk about it soon because I think there's a part in the Tao where I kind of had it kind of reminded me of that. Anyway, Individuation is an exceedingly difficult task. It always involves a conflict of duties whose solution requires us to understand that our, quote, counter will, end quote, is also an aspect of God's will. Wow.
How dare
How dare me? The religions of the masses demand obedience to God's will, while the gnosis demands both obedience and disobedience.
you?
The will of nature is not that of supernature. The law of the morning, which is appropriate for spiritual infants, must be broken by those who have progressed to the law of the evening, where the light of differentiated consciousness must be dimmed in order to admit the luminosity of the midnight sun of individuation. The,
Whoa.
the Jewish gnosis of the Kabbalah recognized this when it capitalized on the divine statement in Isaiah 45:7, which we've read before here on the show. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Isaac Luria, the most Gnostic of all the Kabbalistic teachers, said that the root of all evil lies in the very nature of divine creation, inasmuch as God created in order to manifest everything hidden in his own mysterious nature. The Christian mystic Jacob Boehme similarly regarded God's love and wrath, his brilliant light and burning fire, as belonging inseparably together, both being the effluence of God's eternal word, for life can only be when good and evil exist together, both in God and in man. The Kabbalah, as well as the more daring forms of Christian mysticism, are of course rooted in the wisdom of the ancient Gnostics who declared in the Gospel of Philip, the light and the darkness, life and death, the right and the left are brothers one to another. It is not possible to separate them from one another. Because of this, neither are the good good nor the evil evil. Neither are the good good nor the evil evil, nor is life a life, nor death a death. Because of this, each will be resolved into its origin from the beginning. Crazy.
Wow.
And I'll just read these last two bits
Well,
because
I
this
could
is
read one
okay.
of the
Yeah,
bits.
go ahead.
All right. The reader who is relatively unacquainted with the content of Jung's formidable literary output may be disposed to recoil with some horror at the conventional boogeyman-like term devil employed so early in the description of the Gnostic scheme of the seven sermons. Oh yeah, so if you don't like read the whole thing, you're gonna
Yeah.
you can read the last part if you
Um,
want.
I'll just read a little bit after that. In
Oh
order
yeah.
to put this mythologum of the devil into proper perspectives, it may be useful to recall the importance of evil and its reality to Jung. Indeed, his recognition of the importance of evil runs like a fiery thread through his work. I'll just
Yeah.
blah blah blah.
And
All right.
evil to Jung was a psychic reality in the life of the individual and of human society and history, but he was also conscious of evil as a numinous
I need to
power
look that word up. Keep going.
existing at the deepest or highest metaphysical levels of reality. Unlike the non Gnostic religious spirit of so much of Western religion and philosophy, he did not expect the salvation of man, individuation in Jung's terms, to arise from a rejection of evil. The good God in the light, and the evil God or
The
devil
good
of
God
dark.
of light.
Oh yeah, the good God of light and the evil God of or devil of darkness are equally ineffectual when it comes to the achievement of the human being's ultimate tasks. Yeah.
Yeah. And this last thing, above and beyond, or perhaps between these two powers, there is a third, without which the two poles of existence have neither effect nor power. God and devil are united in a terrifying and majestic divine hybrid, a veritable God devil, whom Jung calls Abraxas.
Exactly.
Oh, sorry for the very long reading, but
We're not sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
sorry, not sorry.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that was some good info in there. So
Yeah, that was very timely. I was reading all that this morning. It's crazy.
that's perfect.
Yeah. Oh, numinous. Numinous.
Yes.
He said, uh, but he was also conscious of evil as a numinous power. Um, Numinous is of or relating to or like a numen, spiritual or supernatural, surpassing comprehension or understanding, mysterious. So you could probably say um, he was also conscious of evil as a mysterious power, existing at the deepest or highest metaphysical levels of reality.
And Aragorn, his line was the men of Numenor.
Yes, yes.
The
I was
mysterious.
thinking when I saw Numinous, I was like, Numenor.
Yeah, me too. I should have just said it. Numenor.
But yeah, I mean, I probably have to read that again because all that is so like dense right there, what we read. I was just kind of highlighting a little bit here and there, but
Yeah, I think basically, it's great, definitely. And everybody go back and re-listen. We're listen to our angelic like voices. What basically what he's saying is like it's all one, right? It's all the good and evil. There's this Abraxas concept that's behind everything. That's just all part of it. And I would say that we can add to it. It doesn't matter what side of this you fall on. Like if you are into God and the devil, or if you are in a different, if you have a different worldview and you see the Abraxas kind of thing, it's all part of that too. So everybody, there's people that need to believe in this stuff because a lot of people will demonize organized religion, but there are some good things that come out of it. They had this, they keep this message alive, and they do serve a function in society with people, so they do some good with people, so it's not all terrible, but there could be a better way. There's another path. But again, I think it's about not judging either way, because then you fall right back into that pit and pedestal thing, and you're kind of putting your worldview on the pedestal of that, and then this other worldview in the pit.
mm-hmm.
You fall back in.
I mean, again, we're preaching to ourselves here.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, all this has just been very enlightening to me, and I wanted to share it today with you all.
Yes, thank you so much,
So
Sharon. And
thank
thank
you
you
all for
guys,
being here.
everybody, for hanging
Yeah.
out with us today. What's up, Kitty? Remember, you can go to morelawsmoreproblems.com, click on the Oversharing tab to support us. And you can also find us in podcast form on there. Or if you're listening to the podcast, you can find our lovely YouTube videos in our YouTube channel, the Brandon Bonanza channel, and all the different playlists that we have. And look forward to all the stuff we have coming out. We're going to be finishing up the Dow soon, it looks like, and starting with Manly P. Hall, one of his works. So look for that. And yeah. Anything else you want to add in there, Sharon? What do you think? We've been going for just about
Yeah,
what
I think
two
we're good. Yeah.
2 hours and 17 minutes. Yeah, I think that's good. Have a good one, y'all. Yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out. Kathleen, Joe, John Chase,
11 people in
Mihal,
the chat. Thank you.
Tony, Coriolis. Don't worry about nursing them drinks while you just do it till you're done, buddy. Oh, Cody, what's up? I didn't see that he was in there. Amberson. My cat's making noise. Did you hear that?
Oh,
Or
yes,
this?
I did hear it. That's crazy.
That was me making the noise.
Oh, okay.
But that's what it sounds like.
Okay.
Go ahead, do it again.
Yeah, I think I did hear it. I maybe your mic is allowing those things
Yeah,
in.
it has a wide range. I think I have the one. I don't remember. I'd have to look in the settings, but there's one that's the strictest. I think I'm right below that one because I want
Oh,
to
okay.
allow some of my wacky sounds. You never
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Go.
I'll look at my settings again.
Did you hear
But I,
that?
oh, barely.
Oh man, that was a good one. That's all right. Pop it like it's hot. Let's see what else. Yeah, so thank you guys. Let us know in the comments what you think, what you thought of this episode. If you want us to talk about anything else, we're definitely going to be talking about these concepts going into the future, because it seems like just as the Tao was kind of like steeped in this stuff, a lot of this stuff is. And I don't think I was seeing as much before going through. When you first come across a lot of this esoteric knowledge, it's just so thick, and there's levels to it, because you have to gain understanding in order to see what they're talking about again. It's like rewatching a movie when you're older and you're like, oh, that's what they mean.
Yes.
Oh, French kiss. That's what it means. No.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you everybody again in the chat. It's amazing that we were here. We had like 14 people, I think, at one point. It's so cool to hang out and and express everything that we've come to learn and the knowledge that we've and the wisdom, that's the word. The wisdom we've steeped and allow us to express it. Thank you guys. I'm very
Yeah.
grateful.
This show has been brought to you by the word wisdom.
That's
Word of
right.
the day.
Let me see. Like Pee Wee Herman. You ever watch that show, Pee Wee's Playhouse? Probably not.
Yeah, back in the day I probably saw clips of it and stuff, but I never like we watched one of the movies, Cody and I, because it was like one of his like
Yeah, Pee
movies
Wee's
that he watched
Big
as a kid.
Adventure.
Yeah.
Tell them Lodge Modge sent you. Yeah, Pee Wee's Playhouse, they would have a word of the day. It was a show, was on every Saturday
Okay.
morning around the cartoons, but it was a live action show, and they'd have a word of the day. And when anyone said that word, everyone would just go crazy. So that's why I do it.
Okay. Okay.
And then like the camera would it would look like the whole place is shaking. Sweet
I was
80s camera
thinking
tricks. Sorry,
I
okay.
was thinking of the Sesame Street. Like this show has been brought to you by
Yeah.
the word wisdom and the letter A. I'm just
This
kidding.
show has been brought to you by the letter N for night, because we like nights.
Yeah.
It's all about the darkness, and
Knights of the Round Table.
that's right.
That's right.
Mm. Well, I guess we could stick a
Arthurian
fork in this one,
legends.
everybody.
Yeah,
So thank
yeah.
you guys one more time. Is there anything in the? Let's see if there's. Oops.
I think that's it.
Check the chat one last time. Anyone say anything? Cool. Thanks all. Have a good one. Yes, thank you guys. All right, cool. All right. Well, what do we say to the good people, Sharon?
That once you start over, Sharon.
Then you totally stop over Karen.
Ooh, yeah. We've been doing that one now. I like it.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to like isolate or whatever the word is. People who are ostracized. People named Karen. I was just thinking about it. I'm like,
Aw, that's very kind of
you
you.
never know, because over caring is much better because it goes along with the pun.
Yeah, it do.
You
Sorry,
don't want to be over Karen. Oh,
that's
go
my
ahead.
beta juice. That's my beta. It do. I do like yoga.
She do. And remember, everybody, we're not trying to tell you how to live.
We're just trying to tell you how to think for yourself a little bit more, maybe, and
Yeah,
not, fall into culty traps and stuff like that.
and see the nuance out
Mm-hmm.
there. All right, everybody. Until next time, see you later. Have a great weekend. Happy
Ciao.
Thursday. Ciao, ciao. Bye bye.